Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere, with just an iPad or an iPhone, and no wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ's markerless motion capture in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, analyzing posture and gait mechanics, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit them at kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. You know, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have Metabolic Elite be one of the sponsors of the Zelos Podcast. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. I've seen a lot of supplements and performance enhancement things over the years, but they pair clinical experience with innovation, like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption, like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, and trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. So learn more at metabolicelite.co. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, Z-E-L-O-S. Well, thanks for joining us on the Zelos Podcast, the show that's all about the pros behind the pros in sports. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder, and this week, Alex Hodgins is joining me. He is a mental performance expert and coach for not only the Vancouver Canucks, the Vancouver Whitecaps, but also the Vancouver national women's soccer team. He's been doing this for a while. And before we get underway with the conversation with Alex, remember, I've got a free webinar coming up at the end of this month. It'll be Tuesday, April 28th, noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's called From Toes to Nose, the secret weapon for rehab and performance. We're going to look at closed chain biomechanics and affecting the foot for better kinetic chain reaction all the way up through the body. Whether you're a rehab specialist or a return performance specialist, physio, athletic trainer, strength coach, doesn't matter. We're going to be going across the entire spectrum. You can check it out on my website, rockysnyder.com, and register there. And now, let's get on with the show. Alex, when you said you would be coming on the podcast, I got to really honestly admit that I was thrilled. I wish I had more mental skills coaches or mental performance coaches. There's a whole bunch of different titles, of course, that you and your colleagues might use, but I love diving in to sports psychology and champions mindset. So first of all, thanks for being on the Zelos Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What inspired you? What intrigued you? Was it early on that you really were just curious about what is the difference in champions and pros, or how did you get into this?
I mean, a standard story, I think. Athletic background, love sport, passionate about it. Probably not ever good enough. I was kind of jack of all trades, master of none. Liked it all. But I think just the field of sports psychology started to come into play more and more. It's been around for a long time, obviously, but came into play more while I was kind of high school, university, and I first caught onto it in university, heard about it, and it was just, I couldn't believe with how obsessed and involved I was in sport that I'd never heard of this. By then I was done competitive sport. So yeah, I just kind of started reading about it just for interest's sake, and next thing you know, I'm doing a master's program in it, and haven't looked back. I've loved it ever since, and I'm very happy to be part of the shaping this world.
Would you say that it was, as far as I am thinking, like thinking back about it all, it seems like it was a trickle down effect where you had these elite level players and teams that were seeking out the competitive advantage, and lo and behold, sports psychology kind of came into play. It didn't start from the grassroots like youth soccer or youth hockey and then work its way up. It was just the opposite way down. So of course, like if you and I are not the elite level athletes that we aspired in our youth to be, that we wouldn't hear about it. It was just kind of a almost exclusive cadre that eventually became more mainstream. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think that's probably the genesis of the field, and but I think it came from this world, most likely Olympic probably drove it more than anything, and then probably a little bit in pro sport as well. But it was this, so much on the line, so much preparation for a minute, and people just realizing that everyone's super good. Like everyone can deliver what is the thing that's going to get them over the edge. And when those five Olympic rings are staring at your face, or that championship or that life-changing moments ahead of you. So I think that's probably, like you said, the genesis, and they started catching on. And then all of a sudden, media and people talking about it over the years and books being published, it's starting to be one of those things where people recognize its importance and its impact on performance at any level. So yeah, it's now more mainstream, still probably pretty far from where it should be, I think, but certainly more mainstream than it was when I started 16, 17 years ago.
And when you started, there was a stigma that was attached, right, wholeheartedly, which has been dissolving as far as I'm concerned, as far as the people that I talk to and the colleagues I have in pro sports and Division One and so on. That mental performance is so much more accepted now, and partly I think because they don't call it like mental health, as if you weren't healthy mentally or something and you needed support with that. This is like mental skills or sports psychology has a different connotation. Like, do you think that we are past the stigma with this, or does it still exist?
Still exists, not nearly what it was, I would say. I think there's still a lot of strides to be made in the field. But I think it's progressed so rapidly in the last 10 years in particular that I think it's starting to kind of become what it could be. But still not quite there, in my experience for sure.
Okay, so you said in the last 10 years, was there a landmark event? Was there a watershed moment 10 years ago?
I just think it's more, you're starting to see it more. People are talking about it more. Professional teams have people fully integrated. It used to be a thing, like we used to joke about this all the time. And one of the first kind of coaches and mentors that brought me on board, his big thing was like, I don't want a parachute support. Like, I want somebody in my environment that sees what's happening, that is watching behaviors, that is working with athletes, but then also seeing the impact of coaches, right? So that integration, and that just wasn't happening. It was like, hey, we know mental performance is important. We're going to have somebody that, hey, here's a number to call if you're not performing well, or we're going to have a guy come in and give you guys a talk every quarter, and hopefully that makes a difference. But everyone forgets about what he said or they or she said, and the next day or the next week, right? So you really needed that integration, and you're starting to see that more. If you're looking at websites of professional teams, there is mental performance or sports psychologists on the websites. It's present. It's more apparent and readily available than it was, and more integrated. So
Okay, so in that moment for you to not be the lecturer or the hotline number, but actually be part of the stakeholders in the team on a regular basis. Are we talking the Canadian women's national team for soccer? Was it the Canucks? Was it the Whitecaps? Like which team, if you don't mind me asking?
no, I don't mind. It was definitely Canada Soccer, and we had I think at the time, a very forward-thinking head coach who had some exposure in a previous role with sports psychology, was bought in. His sort of performance model had kind of, his idea was like, if you're in the gym and you're not mentally focused, you're not getting the most of the gym. If you're on the field and you can't handle the the phases of play we're trying to implement, or mentally you're switched off for those moments, you're not going to be ready to play. So it was almost like this cognition was at the middle of the entire performance model, and he just felt like there couldn't be somebody had to be integrated in the environment to see how it all worked as a whole. And yeah, that was my first that was my first full integration into a team environment.
How did that come about? When did you get the phone call? How did they find out
Yeah,
about you?
right place, right time. Like I think I'd been doing good work, word of mouth, working with some youth national programs in Canada, like swimming, figure skating, sports I knew nothing about at the time, but was kind of worked with them for a few years. And then Canada had centralized in Vancouver, so they 5 months out of the year, actually the first year was 8 months, they were in Burnaby, BC, which is just down the street, centralized. So the athletes lived in a residence, they trained daily together. We traveled to tournaments, etc. So when that all came about and the funding was all put in play to make that residency happen, the head coach decided he wanted a mental performance consultant involved as well. So I just happened to be there. Word got around. I got an interview out of the whole thing, and yeah, rest is history.
Okay, so my own personal experience within my career path, initially starting out as a personal trainer back in about 1991, it was something that was also a trickle down. Like it was the corporate executives or their wives or spouses. It was the Hollywood stars. It was the New York Wall Street tycoons that had these trainers. It wasn't in mainstream, but it was starting to kind of percolate down the topsoil into middle America, so to speak. And so in 1991, here on the Central Coast, I came upon this concept of the passion I had for being in the weight room. I could actually turn into a career. At what point in time did that happen to you with sports psychology? Like, granted, you're pursuing your passion and your interest, and you're intrigued by this. But at what point in time do you be like, this is legitimately something I'm going to follow?
Yeah. So I'll try to answer that quick. I just want to go back to your comment about personal training and the trickle down. I think it's a great framework for thinking about mental performance because there was a time in the like strength and conditioning coaches are embedded in teams and they have been for so long, right? Everyone
Yeah.
thinks that's just what's since the beginning of sports that's been, but that wasn't the case, right? And in fact, probably not even that uh, recent where it's been like a full-time role, right?
1978 Nebraska football, first full-time strength conditioning
Sure.
coach.
And if
That
you
was
like,
it.
you'd think 40s, 50s was probably when it started, right? So 78. So, and that's the first one. So when it actually caught on, you're talking mid 80s, late 80s, right? So I think mental performance is probably in that. We're closer to kind of mid 90s or whatever for strength and conditioning than were in the early stages, but I think it's still in that kind of early stages of what it's really going to look like from a integrated performance model, in my opinion. Anyways, so that's an aside.
Yeah.
That moment for me, two big moments. One, my first semester, we had a legendary sports psychologist named Penny Wordner, like epic uh, person in the field and really like helped pioneer the field in Canada for sure. And yeah, I think it was one of our first classes. She was like, by the way, I'm going to be away for 3 weeks in, I can't think must have been the Beijing Olympics, 2008. Yeah. Anyways, and I was like, whoa, like, like I always wanted to be an Olympian as an individual, as an athlete. So, hey, here's another avenue. So that kind of got my hooks in the field for sure. And then I don't really think I realized I could make a career out of it until Canada Soccer hired me. And yeah, that was a full-time integrated role. Before then I had other jobs while trying to make a name for myself and pursue it. So I would say that was 2013 when it really like, okay, I'm going to make a go of this. This is my thing. This is it. There's no plan B.
Burn the boats, take the
Yep.
island. We're going
Boom.
for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
How exciting and scary. I love monumental landmark moments in life have two extreme polar opposite emotions attached to it. I'm always, having kids, starting a business, launching a career or something like that. It's like extremely exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Does it
And
stop? because I'd love the fear to stop, but it also is
Oh,
fear drives excitement a lot too. So
no, you just got to watch the movie Dune over and over. Fear is the mind killer. You just keep
yeah,
that mantra, just walk through it. And
yeah,
when you look back, all that remains is yourself, and the fear is gone. But I'm loving the thought of just sports psychology, and I'm curious. Like, I've taken psychology classes at the university, and they were very actually intriguing in the different models of psychology that are out there, biological, behavioral, and so on. But never did we come upon sports psychology, and this, of course, was in the '80s when I was at the university. But I'm curious, like, do you do you draw from some of the most winningest coaches like Coach K, Duke basketball, or John Wooden, UCLA, or Phil Jackson with the Bulls, or you can list a whole bunch. Do you draw from their coaching styles as a part of the psychology, or is it more from people that are in your field, like the woman you just mentioned, who's like a juggernaut in Canadian sports psychology? Like, how does all the information culminate together in your approach?
yeah. I think like I'm just naturally curious with when it comes to excellence. I wouldn't say like those coaches you named, great resources, great books. You can learn a lot, but that's limited. Like corporate world and what how Apple became Apple and what Steve Jobs did there and how he led a culture, good and bad. And yeah, like you said, coaches of different environments. If I'm looking at coaches, it's often about the culture they created. Winning coaches created it, like a Phil Jackson. There's a sustainable winning culture across 9, 10 years of Chicago, and then again in like so. There's something there that should be paid attention to. How do you do that year over year? It's maybe it's it's possible 1 year, maybe two, but to do it for as long as he did with as many rings as he did, there's something there. But yeah, I think the same goes for corporate executives and people that have conquered the business world and what they put into place. So I'm just trying to absorb. And then, sorry, and to your point, like sports psychology specifically, the mental skills that are out there that we're learning and trying to implement and help athletes apply uh, are also shaped and deeply rooted in just traditional psychological behavioral theories, etc. And trying to just make sense for me what I think works and just absorbing what I can and then applying it and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And then going back to the drawing board and rediscovering and reapplying. And then really, I think that helps kind of shape and narrow models down the more you have that opportunity. And the more you explore too.
And along your career path, which has been quite extensive, and the teams that you've worked with and the players, both youth and professional and Olympic levels, national levels, you've developed your own framework, I imagine, kind of borrowing from areas that you were influenced by, others that come into your awareness. Like, what is the fundamentals of your framework? If you could boil it down, what would you say?
Yeah. So I would split it. I focus primarily on an individual and sort of team level. There's the mental performance aspects that I think people need, right? And then I think there's also the team cultural components and the team dynamics that I also like to work in, and that's one of my bigger passions as well, is how do you fit all the pieces together of a bunch of people that are highly competitive, and how do you make that all work going the same direction. So on the mental performance side of things, I'm big. I think simplicity is important. Sport can get complicated. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of contradictory information out there. I think my job is to simplify the complexity and simplify the literature for people that they can actually action it and apply it. My model I work from is sort of threefold. There's three areas from a mental performance standpoint I think are non-negotiables. And the example I would give, I was just in Italy with Ski Cross Canada for the Olympics. I was there for 3 weeks with them. And what always goes through my mind helping an athlete prepare is if they're standing in the start gate and they're about to drop in for an Olympic finals, and I don't know that what their systems were leading up to that moment, what their system is going to be to execute, and then what their system is going to be to recover and go again. Because in the ski cross, you just basically keep going until you're eliminated, essentially. Uh, then I haven't done my job because this is the Olympics. This is their big moment. They get 1 minute to get it right, and if I don't know that they've got the right systems in place to do that and are aware of what they need in that moment, then I haven't done my job. So I call it like the ready mind, and that's like a preparation phase. So what do you need to do to get to that start gate as confident, as focused, as physically, mentally, spiritually ready as possible? Then there's the execution phase, which is start to finish. What do you do in the start to finish? How do you chunk the race down so your attention remains focused on specific features? What happens if you're kind of off a little bit and need to readjust and recalibrate and adapt? What allows you to do that? And again, this is more from a skiing perspective, but you can apply this to any sport. And then what do you do to recover? Like how do you get beyond that race quickly, especially if you're going up a chairlift? That's all you only have a chairlift ride and then maybe 20 minutes and then you're back in it. And an even more intense race than the one you just finished. So how do you kind of hit the reset button? What do you take from that first race? And I call that, so the second phase, start to finish, I call that the resilient mind. So what that resiliency exists to allow you to perform your best start to finish. And then the recovery mind is that end phase, which is that recovery, that ability to kind of hit the reset. So you get back into the first phase, which is that ready mind really effectively. Uh,
Okay, the national Olympic team goes to Italy, but the team doesn't form yet, but for maybe a month or two prior to the Olympics themselves. They're still qualifying, and then you've got to determine who the champions are that are going to go to represent your country. So you've got basically, maybe 30 to 60 days to discern all this information. Now, granted, these are champions, these are athletes of a high caliber, so they probably already have some of these things established, but you still have to figure out what it is. And is there a way you can fine tune it? Like, is that the process you go through individually, or am I completely off base?
no, I think yeah, and maybe that's a bit of a misconception as well. We work in quadrennial phases, so 4-year cycles. And I've been with the ski cross team for 6 years. And you hear this all the time. Olympic athletes prepare 4 years for this 1 minute moment. And that is not true. They prepare 15, 16, 17 years for that 1 minute. Like they
Hmm.
started skiing at 5. They got really passionate about skiing at 13. They got exceptionally passionate about skiing at 18, 19, right? So they are committing a lot to this, right? Uh, so we work in a quad cycle. I basically would set the quadrennial cycle up. So year one, we're laying the foundation down. We're doing team presentations on some of these specific areas, what you need, how are you going to build up, like, your prep. And to your point, they've got experience. Like we're not starting from scratch, but we're trying to just add, fine tune. Maybe I can trigger something that they didn't consider or think about before. And then you're sort of trying to layer and layer and layer until you get to that 4th year, where I always say it's like almost you're just putting the polish on. By the time you get to the Olympics, you're right. The team hasn't formed. We only get 4 men, and we had 4 men and 3 women in the event out of 14 total. Um, but all of them have had this work. It's not like you start the work as soon as the team's named. We've had 4 years of building, trial and error, failing, succeeding, and then, like I said, by the time we're at the Olympics, we're not adding, we're just polishing.
Got it. Okay, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
And so we can either take them, or we can tr- kind of put our view toward the Canucks, or the Whitecaps, whomever, these teams and these athletes. I'm curious, like, your observational skills. You're saying that you watch them in their arena, you watch them in the weight room, you're spending time with them. And so there's mental, emotional, spiritual components that I'm imagining that you have a keen eye, whether we call it body language or energetics. Like, when did you, in that skill that you have, and I'm imagining it's quite fine tuned, when did you really start to hone that to the point where you're starting to see things other people don't see?
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that. I think again, evolution over time. I don't think you can have a good. You probably can do okay in terms of behavioral observation and giving feedback on that when you watch sport in general, but being, like I said, being fully integrated, watching every single practice, knowing what's being asked of the athletes, knowing what the athletes are asking of themselves, and then actually watching and observing and seeing it, whether it's happening in real time. Yeah, you learn quite quick from that standpoint. When literally 9 years of Canada soccer, I think I missed 1 week because of birth of a child. Otherwise, I was at every practice, every game. Same here with the Canucks. I watch practices. I watch all the games. I see what's happening because I want to be able to provide that feedback or reinforcement of what's been happening. So yeah, probably just something that's evolved over time, and you certainly feel confident. And I sorry, the other point I would add is knowing what you're looking for as well, right? That's key. I think when you start out, you're just kind of observing and just taking it all in and maybe making some notes. But I think as you progress and get more of an expertise in it, you start to know what really you should be looking for and how it links to what the team's trying to achieve or the organizational objectives and values, etc. So you kind of start to get fine tuned from that standpoint as well.
We're just going to take a quick pause from this conversation to acknowledge our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. The Zelos Podcast is sponsored by Kinetic IQ, where intelligence meets motion. Kinetic IQ brings a biomechanics lab into the palm of your hand, letting you measure movement anytime, anywhere with just an iPad or iPhone. No wearables required. I've been using Kinetic IQ in my own practice, and whether you're screening athletes, optimizing performance, or guiding return to play, it helps practitioners like us save time, capture more objective data, and make instant actionable decisions. So to learn more about how Kinetic IQ is shaping the future of intelligent movement, visit kinetikiq.com. That's KINETIKIQ.com. At the forefront of metabolic elite is Jim Lavelle, internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, a chief science officer at Lifetime, and the co-chair for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's got over 4 decades of experience and has guided Olympic athletes, professional teams, and leading health institutions. You know what makes Metabolic Elite different is their commitment to real results. Like Lipitab, their proprietary solid-state liposomal delivery system. It's a chewable format which enhances absorption like nutrients like BPC 157 and synapses. They're delivered more efficiently in the body, supporting recovery, focus, cognitive health. Their formulas go beyond the basics, solving performance health challenges at the system level. Every product is tested for quality, it's backed by research, it's trusted by athletes and clinicians alike. And you can get 10% off all of Metabolic Elite products by entering the coupon code ZELOS, ZELOS. So we don't name players on this podcast. We keep respect to their lives. But so without naming names or anything, what is it that you're looking for? When you're watching an athlete of any of these sports activities, what's your intention?
Well, I think it depends on the athlete, context, circumstance of team, etc. But a lot of it is reinforce. For example, if I've got an athlete and we're working on something, I'm probably putting way more emphasis on seeing it going well than I am when they're not doing it, and I'll provide real examples like, hey, we talked about, for example, like we had hockey, you get slumps all the time. And we had a guy in here last year in particular who was dealing with a bit of a slump, frustrated by it. Very big culture guy, very big role player kind of guy, not a superstar, but a role player, but he'd been really struggling and so every time a shot happened and it didn't go in the back of the net, there was this typical reaction you'd expect from a frustrated individual. but he's still getting in those spots. He's still creating good chances. He's still doing the things that, and anyway, so at this point, he's starting to get a little frustrated about slumping and how long he'd been since he's getting points. And I just brought that part up is like, I'm seeing more frustration from you than I've ever seen even though you're still getting to the spots, you're getting a bad bounce here, goalie makes a huge save, but now I'm seeing you take yourself out of the game for the next 30 seconds because you're frustrated. You're a little slower getting back into the game, or you're missing the rebound because you're focused on the fact that you missed the first opportunity, and but again, because I'm integrated, we've already been working on something. You can provide this feedback. You can provide a little bit of that sense of like, this is what I'm looking for, and this is what I think makes a difference. And then providing that for them is really critical.
And are we talking potentially, aside from having these conversations and and explaining what it is you're seeing, do you provide them? I've never cared for the word exercise because I'm reminded of Linda Blair with her head spinning around, and that scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I know it's exorcise, but exercise in itself is often a negative connotation. But do you have mental skills practices and drills in which you impart to them as part of their overall conditioning program, or is it something else?
Oh, certainly skills for sure. Like that's what we're talking about. Like this, and you in the physical field, that is how I relay everything. Like you take somebody into the gym and you teach them how to do a squat with no weight on the squat bar, and they go down and you've got 20 corrections for them, right? Even a good athlete, you're probably giving them 20 corrections, right? And then they get better at it, so you load more weight and their body adjusts and they start squatting ineffectively again. So you're making those corrections. That's the same as the mental skills, right? We're providing these skills. For example, you're talking about attentional control, you're talking about imagery and visualization, you're talking about sort of anchors and how to reset in the moment, you're talking about stress and coping. All of these skills that really go to being able to perform at your best when the pressure matters. But my job is to not only provide the skills, but also those corrections as we go, as you would in the gym, because the skills are, you can understand as a squat. People, hey, this is why you squat. This is why you go down. This is why you come up. This is what you're going to get out of the muscles. But that doesn't mean they get it and they're good at it just because they understand what you're talking about, right? And that's the same for the mental skills. This is why we do visualization. This is why it helps and impacts confidence. This is the impact from a neuroscience standpoint that actually really benefits getting you reps when you're not actually in that environment and more preparation, blah, blah, blah. We could go on for a while about visualization, but then they need the reps. They need the experience of it. They need the feedback. They need reinforcement of how to do it, how to apply it in different contexts, etc. Right. So I always link it to the physical space as well, because I think they get that. You don't just figure out how to work out in the gym by going to the gym once, and you don't get stronger by going to the gym once. It's the same thing, same concept.
So NLP kind of work, or is it more like guided imagery with music in the background? They're listening to this while they're warming up, or like what? How do you infuse this into the player's day-to-day life?
Well, I think it's specific to the player and what the objective is. Like
Certainly.
if we're looking at confidence, you're looking at the pillars of confidence and where they draw confidence from, right?
Where's that? Tell me, please explain.
Yeah, so you get one, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, there's evidence. You've got to look at the evidence of historical evidence, and I don't think it really matters where you've done it, but if you've done something well, if you've achieved something great, there's some evidence that you've done something great and can be done again, right? I think there's a little bit of information that needs to be taught on internal dialogue and I call it productive thinking. I never say positive self-talk. I say productive thinking because it doesn't have to be positive. It has to be productive. It's got to move you
Mm.
forward towards what you want. But how we communicate with ourselves is critical, and that's a key source of confidence, right? So this is something we need to understand. We need to understand our habits, how we speak to ourselves, how we can correct, how we can catch ourselves and readjust. And then how do we build in better systems so that we can actually, when we're preparing for a game, we lock ourselves into a certain mindset and framework that we use through our internal dialogue that kind of directs us where we want to go. And there's some unbelievable examples out there that you can provide athletes with as well to observe. Preparation, obviously, how they get ready for an event, like how they optimize from an hour pre-game to start of the game is a really critical part. But if you look at somebody like Michael Phelps, and he's a great section in a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And essentially his concept was he's designed, and he maybe was a bit extreme, I would say. Maybe not every athlete needs the routine to be down to the second and dialed. I don't think that's right. But his point was if I do my warm up in the water the exact way I want with the exact strokes I planned for the exact amount of time, that's going to get me to the blocks in the best mental and physical space I could possibly be in. He's like, everything I do leading up to that point is a win. And then his mindset was, I've accumulated multiple wins all along the way. So by the time I'm on the blocks, I might have 15 wins already. So my confidence is already built, right? And he already know, and plus he's got evidence that that's driven success previously. So he knows that's a formula for him that actually works and drives success, right?
Sure.
So again, I think, and then again, I would add visualization, imagery, where that fits into your world. But just those four things alone: evidence, internal dialogue, how we prepare for the event at hand, the mindset, etc., and then imagery and visualizing, etc. Like those right there, if you can get to a high level of applicability with those leading into anything, yeah, your confidence is going to be at a different level than if you're not doing those things.
Heck yeah. Do you have a specific model of psychology to I won't say categorize, but to understand the athletes better? Like there's the Enneagram, or there's other types of ways to discern what are the main characteristics of individuals, and they have these commonalities in each of these. Like, do you use anything like that?
Not a huge. I have in the past. I've been asked in the past. The only thing I generally use, we use this with the Canucks a fair bit, is called the TASE, the Attentional and Interpersonal Styles Inventory. It was created, I believe, in the 80s by Dr. Robert Nettefer out of, I want to say, definitely a California university. I can't remember which one, maybe in San Diego. I like it because it provides a little bit of like, here's a bit of like their attentional processes. Maybe when are they more internally distracted, so lost in their head, which is usually, those highly intelligent athletes, they overanalyze, they get stuck, right? Or are they more externally distracted? Do they get kind of absorbed in the environment? And then an Olympic environment might be pretty intense for those people because they're the crowds, the rings, the noise around it, the media, etc., could be pretty distracting for an externally distracted individual. But it also provides like info on introversion, extroversion, how they receive info, their self-confidence, their self-critic, all of those types of things. So if I use anything, it's that. I'm not always into the self-report measures just because there's a lot of challenges with those. I'll give you a great example. I was speaking to one of our players here at the Canucks yesterday. We were having lunch together, and he was saying he got a bunch sent to him before his draft year, which was, I think, 10 years ago now. And he was like, yeah, I got some of my friends to fill them out. And, so that hurt because we get some athletes to fill some stuff out. And I was like, oh, maybe it's not even the guy that we're trying to interview that's filled this out. So, anyways, I use them. There's a place for them. I think there's a lot of value. They're not integrated massively into my practice though.
How about this? Like from your own professional perspective, which what attributes or what types of athletes is like your creme de la creme, the type of athletes that you really connect with and shine with, and what attributes are the most frustrating? You don't feel like you're being as effective as you could be. You're stymied. There's always, I'm just thinking of my own kind of client histories and so on. And I got some that, man, they may have been tough ones, but I loved working with them. And then there were these people that I just couldn't penetrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can I start on the negative side first?
Sure, wherever you want to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Just because it's been fresh. I was talking about this morning. I think the tough one is I because a motivation technically falls under a mental performance umbrella, right? I can't train somebody to care and be motivated, and that's the toughest one. And I'm in that situation a lot. And even in professional sport, and you're like, I can't believe I'm trying to talk to you about being motivated to pursue this thing. So that one's a tough one. I and it's I've just been around long enough to know how critical intrinsic motivation is. Doesn't mean you don't like the external feedback and getting a little bit of that fire, and every now and then you need a little bit of that poke from a coach or somebody to just remind you to get going, but it's got that intrinsic motivation so critical, and I find it so challenging to work with athletes that don't have it. And in fact, many of them wouldn't seek my services if they aren't, because they're not that motivated to get better, right? So they're not finding other avenues.
Have you ever seen Prefontaine? You know that movie
I've
about
never
Steve
watched it.
Prefontaine?
Yeah, I know the gist of it though. Yeah.
All right. There was a line in there that just resonates. As soon as you said that, Bowerman, coach,
Yeah.
started Nike,
I
and the
know.
reason, and Prefontaine was one of the leading reasons why, because he had to increase his stride length and all that. But he was going into this place where he just was not into anything, and he said, I can coach you on how to run faster. I can coach you to be a stronger athlete. The one thing I can't coach is desire.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
Yeah. And it's tough, and it frustrates me. It frustrates me more at the higher. I get it if it's like a teenager and their parents have contacted me and, hey, you want to work with our son and daughter, and you have a session or two, and you're like it's okay, I get it, but maybe like sports not your thing, or just play for fun. Like who cares? Like you just enjoy it. You get a lot out of recreational. That's fine. But when you're at a professional level and you feel like not only do you have to like lead the horse to water, but try to shove their head in the water to drink is tough. It's a tough reality. So anyway, that's my frustration. Um, Love, and I'd imagine this probably is reciprocated by you. I really like curious athletes that are just they're open, but not so open that they're just willing to accept anything. Like the curiosity, but asking tough. Like I like where it is a duel. Like I'm trying to drag stuff out of them. They're trying to drag stuff out of me. They're challenging me. Hey, that didn't actually work the way we thought it was going to. Okay, let's try this. Like let's go back at it. And it's like a partnership, but it's a push together. It's not just a. And I think that's something people always think mental performance is just that arm around a shoulder. It's going to be okay. Like I challenge and I push as much as I support. And I think that's the art and the science behind it. But I love a curious athlete that just is trying to find. They're not even struggling. They're just trying to find another way to keep going and keep getting better. It's so enjoyable, right? And just kind of work on that formula for them that's going to work, and how to sustain success over time. Those are the ones that, yeah, you love. You love the conversations because they can go any way. Um, and keep you on your toes and keep you challenged and keep you thinking afterwards, and then coming back and going at it again is so fun.
Is journaling any part of this process? I can't imagine for every athlete, because but there may be some that is a great tool to use. Do you use journaling at all?
Absolutely. Journaling for sure. I generally lean a little bit more on like just reflection, what I call reflection, but I encourage everyone to have a book, like a good book that they're happy to write in. I just think it's critical. You can call it journaling or whatever, but just getting thoughts out of your head. I prefer it to be a little bit more structured, especially if it's around games specifically and performances. I really like it to be a bit of a structure behind it, of because otherwise you can just ramble or you can get lost in the negatives, which a lot of athletes do. So I prefer a bit more of a structured, formal style of reflection, but 100% writing it down, getting it out of your head, closing the book.
Kind of a
So
personal inventory of what went well, what went really well. What are the things I could improve upon? Is that what we're talking?
yeah, 100%. And again, like you can Google reflection or debriefs and get 5 million of this is the best way to debrief, whatever. That's fine. My personal like the one I lean on the most is from the Navy SEALs, which is just like good, better, how. What was good about our performance? What could be better? How? Good means we're starting with the good. We're not getting lost in that negativity bias. You're forcing yourself to, even if you didn't play well, you're forcing yourself to find something good or a few things good out of that. Better is that growth mindset. Like I have never in 17 years of working at high level sport, I've never seen a perfect game of any sort. So there's always improvements to be made. What could be better? And then how would we do it? That's the application. Like when we show up tomorrow, we show up next practice. Here's some things we're going to dial in to make sure we're ready for the next game. Easy.
So
Can be done in 5, 10
beautiful.
minutes.
Uh, I get a sense that there's certain words in your vocabulary that you view as poison, that you avoid using as much as you possibly can because the power of sound, the power of words as a way of creating realities. So, what are your poison words? What's poisonous to you?
I think perfection is poison.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that one. Damn, Alex, that was good.
I think it's a overused and over desired outcome that is just not there, you know? Uh, I think it's okay to strive for excellence and greatness, but yeah, we get lost in perfection and it means we're not when we get lost in perfection, we're not able to deal with failure. We're not able to adjust and adapt as well. And that's just part of it. This isn't me. I mean, you can go anyone talking about this in any field, neuroscience, psychology, like failure is critical to move forward. And perfection is often the opposite of that, like, and if you're doing things perfectly, you're probably not stretching your comfort zone and probably not growing, right? So I do think that word right there. Every time I hear an athlete say it, I try to get them to back up and reframe it.
I honestly really love talking to professionals like you because at the end of the conversation, I know I have faith and trust that I'm going to hear something that I really needed to hear. And what you just shared right now was a gold mine for me. That is freaking awesome. Okay, I'm going to put you in the hot seat right now. If you're up for it, I've got rapid fire questions. Just
Sure.
see if you can go through them. Are you up for it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Mental toughness or emotional awareness, which matters more under pressure?
Uh, Emotional awareness.
One mindset mistake even elite athletes still make.
Mindset mistake elite athletes make. Overthinking. 100%.
And what's the best quick reset tool during competition?
I mean, you got to say breath, but you got to know how to breathe.
Oh, tell me more.
I mean, everyone say, ask anyone, what do you do when you're stressed out in again? They say breathing. How do you breathe? No idea. They don't have any. There's ways to breathe.
Yeah,
There's ways to regulate your system. You're never going to calm down, but you can settle the system down. You know this,
beautiful.
right?
Okay. Well, this is a carryover into that then. Visualization or breath work, if you had to choose.
I'm going to go visualization, but it's a narrow win.
Okay. What separates gold medal mindset from silver medal mindset?
Confidence.
Okay. You're leading right to the next one. Confidence, built more from preparation or experience?
Uh, I'm going to say experience.
Okay. We're not looking for perfection here. Remember, that's a poison word. One daily habit that creates elite performers.
I would say, okay, having a sense of your personal values and then acting on them.
Brilliant. Feel ready versus be ready. Which one wins?
B, feelings are overrated.
Dang. One word that defines high performance under pressure.
Adaptable.
I love it, man. That was pretty rapid. You
That
started
was.
out slow. Got to
That's
admit, but you held on to the end. That was great.
yeah. I'm gonna be rethinking those answers all night. So
That's good. That's good. We'll play it back another time, man. Alex, this honestly, you have exceeded my expectations with this conversation. I wish I had more time, but who knows? After the seasons are over, between the Canucks and the Whitecaps and everything else you're doing, family man and all that, if you come up for air, maybe we get you back on. But in the meantime, like, do you have any information out there that's circling the internet, or have you written any books, or you got videos or anything like that people can tap into?
I've tried to keep a pretty low profile. Yeah, I got a website, reachyourapex.ca, I believe is the website. I'm on Instagram. I think it's Alex Hodgins Consulting. Otherwise, yeah, not a ton. I've kept a pretty low profile. The book's in the works, I believe, but slow process. So
All right, well, we'll keep it a low profile because there's only like two people that listen to this
yeah,
podcast. I
I
assure you.
I doubt that.
Well, we'll make sure we put that in the descriptions. And honestly, this has been a treat. I can't thank you enough. And I think I just scratched the surface on really where I wanted to go and find out more. But like I said, my wheelbarrow is full with what you gave me. So thank you. I'm very grateful for you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
And that closes the chapter on this episode. I can't thank Alex enough for coming on, as well as the Canucks and the Whitecaps for allowing this interview to happen. Remember, I've got a free webinar coming up Tuesday, April 28th. It's going to be noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, from toes to nose, the secret weapon for rehab and performance. I really hope you can join me there. Just go to my website, rockysnyder.com. You can register there. It's between me and Perform Better. You can even go to their website. Any way you get there, I hope you do. And we'll see you next week. Now, one more note from our sponsors. Remember to check out metabolicelite.co. Check out all the products they have on their website. Synapsin Pro is something I've been using to help stay focused without having to over-caffeinate myself. It keeps me in the zone so I can just really hone in on the things I need to achieve without feeling like, man, I gotta reach for an energy drink every 5 minutes. Metabolicelite.co. And don't forget, Kinetic IQ. They've got markerless motion capture for morons like me. I can use their product with my iPhone or my iPad. I can look at posture analysis, movement analysis of any exercise, gait analysis. It gives me everything I could possibly want when tracking people's movements. So, check out kineticiq.com.